Rosicrucians, Golden Dawn, and Theosophy exploring occult secret societies. Hello and welcome back to Driftwood Histories. Tonight, our journey takes us away from the grand halls of power and the dusty crypts of the elite. We drift into a different kind of shadow, the shadow of the soul, the realm of the unseen. We are stepping into the world of the occult, a world of forbidden knowledge, ancient wisdom, and secret philosophies that have flowed like an underground river beneath the surface of Western history. This is a journey into the mysteries of the human spirit. We will explore societies built not for political power, but for spiritual enlightenment. Brotherhoods dedicated not to earthly rule, but to unlocking the secrets of the cosmos. They sought to understand the hidden architecture of reality, to find the philosopher's stone, to commune with angels, and to answer the oldest questions of all. Who are we? Where do we come from? And where are we going? So, find your comfortable place. Let the mundane world fall away. Close your eyes, and allow my voice to be your guide as we light a single candle and step into the esoteric traditions of three of the most influential and enigmatic occult movements of the modern era. The mystical and allegorical Rosicrucians, the ritualistic and magical Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, and the cosmic, ambitious Theosophical Society. Our story begins not with a bang, but with a whisper, with a set of anonymous pamphlets that appeared in Germany and set the imagination of Europe on fire. In the early years of the 17th century, Europe was a world holding its breath. It was an age of profound and violent contradictions. The Protestant Reformation had torn the seamless garment of Christendom into warring factions, and the continent was teetering on the brink of the 30 Years' War, a conflict that would drown Germany in blood. Yet, at the same time, a new kind of light was dawning. The scientific revolution was taking its first bold steps. Johannes Kepler was mapping the elliptical orbits of the planets, Galileo Galilei was pointing his telescope towards the heavens, and Francis Bacon was championing a new method of empirical inquiry. It was an age of anxiety, but also an age of immense intellectual and spiritual ferment. And into this charged, volatile atmosphere, a mystery was born. It did not arrive with the force of an army or the decree of a king. It arrived as a whisper, in the form of three small, anonymous pamphlets that appeared in Germany and set the collective imagination of Europe on fire. The first of these, published in Kassel, Germany in 1614, was the Fama Fraternitatis Rosae Crucis, the fame of the Brotherhood of the Rose Cross. The document told a stunning, almost unbelievable story. It announced to the learned men of Europe the existence of a secret, invisible brotherhood of philosopher-alchemists, founded over a century earlier by a mysterious and revered figure named Christian Rosenkreuz, which translates to Rose Cross. According to the legend laid out in the Fama, Christian Rosenkreuz was a German nobleman of the 15th century. Driven by a profound spiritual hunger, he embarked on a grand tour, not of the courts of Europe, but of the mystical East. He traveled to Cyprus, to Damascus, and then to a mythical city in Arabia called Damcar, a place unknown to any geographer, a city of wise men. Here, he was initiated into the secret wisdom of the ages. He learned the secrets of alchemy, the magical language of nature, the principles of celestial harmony, and the art of healing. After sojourning in Egypt and the enlightened city of Fez in Morocco, Rosenkreuz returned to Europe, his mind filled with a plan for a universal reformation of mankind. He sought to share his knowledge with the established scholars and religious leaders of his time, but they, blinded by their own dogma and arrogance, rejected him. Undeterred, he returned to Germany and, around the year 1407, gathered a small circle of disciples. He founded a secret order, the Brotherhood of the Rose Cross. Their mission was to preserve and transmit this hidden knowledge through the generations, working silently, behind the scenes, for the betterment of humanity. They took 6 vows: to heal the sick, free of charge, to wear no special clothing that would distinguish them, to meet once a year at their headquarters, the House of the Holy Spirit, to choose a successor to replace them when they died, to keep the existence of the Brotherhood a secret for 100 years, and to use the letters RC as their seal and character. The Fama then related the most fantastic part of the story. It claimed that the secret, unviolated tomb of Christian Rosenkreuz had recently been discovered by the later members of the order. The vault was a perfect heptagon, each side representing a different branch of knowledge. In the center was a circular altar, and beneath it, the perfectly preserved body of their founder, holding a parchment scroll that contained the concentrated wisdom of the order. The vault was lit by an ever-burning lamp, a symbol of the eternal, divine knowledge they guarded. The discovery of this tomb, the manifesto declared, was a sign. The 120-year period of secrecy was over. The time had come for the Brotherhood to reveal itself and to invite the worthy scholars of Europe to join in its great work of reformation. The effect of this pamphlet was electric. It spread across Europe like wildfire, translated into multiple languages and passed from hand to hand in the intellectual salons, universities, and printing houses of the continent. Scholars, philosophers, alchemists, and mystics were captivated. Who were these mysterious Rosicrucians? Where was their invisible college? And most importantly, how could one join? A year later, in 1615, the second manifesto appeared, the Confessio Fraternitatis, or the Confession of the Brotherhood. This text confirmed the existence of the order, elaborated on its philosophical and Christian foundations, and fiercely attacked the established dogmas of both the Catholic Church and the sterile, materialistic science of the day. It promised a future where science and faith were not enemies, but partners in revealing the glory of God's creation. It ended with an open invitation for a chosen few to make their interests known, assuring them that their call would be heard by the invisible brothers. The third and final text, published in 1616, was different. The chemical wedding of Christian Rosenkreuz was not a manifesto, but a complex and beautiful allegorical romance. It is a dreamlike, 7-day narrative of Christian Rosenkreuz's journey to a magical castle to attend the wedding of a king and queen. The story is a dense tapestry of alchemical symbolism, Hermetic philosophy, and Christian mysticism. It describes trials, temptations, beheadings, resurrections, and the ultimate creation of a new, divine royal couple. It is not a literal account of an event, but a symbolic map of the soul's journey towards purification, illumination, and ultimate union with the divine, the great alchemical work. Together, these three texts ignited the Rosicrucian furor. A massive, pan-European intellectual and spiritual debate erupted. Hundreds of pamphlets and letters were published, some praising the Brotherhood as the heralds of a new dawn, others condemning it as a dangerous hoax or a diabolical, anti-Christian conspiracy. Prominent figures of the age, including the great philosopher René Descartes and the English physician and mystic Robert Fludd, publicly sought contact with the order. In Paris, mysterious posters appeared overnight, declaring, "We, the deputies of the Higher College of the Rosecross, do make our stay, visibly and invisibly, in this city." The city was thrown into a state of paranoid excitement. But here we must ask the central, enduring question. Was the Brotherhood of the Rose Cross, as described in these manifestos, a real historical organization? Most modern historians have come to a consensus. No. It is now widely believed that the original order was a brilliant, elaborate allegoria ludibrium, a term for a learned joke or intellectual play created by a circle of Lutheran thinkers centered in Tübingen, Germany. The likely author, or at least the central figure of this circle, was a young and brilliant theologian named Johann Valentin Andrea. Andrea himself, in his later life, seemed to hint that the chemical wedding was a youthful satirical work of his own creation. The goal of this Tübingen circle was likely not to found a literal secret society, but to use the idea of one as a powerful vehicle for their own ideals. In a time of intense religious and political strife, they were calling for a third way, a reformation not just of the church, but of science, philosophy, and society itself. They dreamed of a world where the mystical faith of Christianity could be reconciled with the emerging discoveries of science, where alchemy and medicine could work together, and where knowledge could lead to a more tolerant, enlightened, and peaceful society. The character of Christian Rosenkreuz was, in all likelihood, a symbolic invention, a personification of their ideals. His very name, Rosecross, is a powerful alchemical and Christian symbol. The cross represents the body, the material world, suffering, and death. The rose, blooming at its center, represents the unfolding of the soul, spiritual consciousness, resurrection, and the promise of eternal life. The Rosicrucian, therefore, is one who seeks to achieve this spiritual alchemy, to transmute the lead of the material human being into the gold of a divine one. So, if the original order was a fiction, a beautiful and compelling piece of philosophical propaganda, why did it become so profoundly influential? Because the idea of Rosicrucianism was more powerful than any literal organization could ever be. It spoke to a deep spiritual hunger in the European soul. It gave a name, a narrative, and a set of potent symbols to a current of thought that had been flowing in the esoteric underground for centuries. It synthesized Christian mysticism, the ancient philosophy of Hermeticism, attributed to the mythical Egyptian sage Hermes Trismegistus, the Jewish mystical tradition of Kabbalah, and the symbolic science of alchemy into a coherent and inspiring vision. The Rosicrucian ideal was a magnet for the mystically inclined. In the decades and centuries that followed, numerous groups and individuals emerged, all claiming to be the true inheritors of the Rosicrucian tradition. Freemasonry, as it evolved into its speculative form, absorbed a great deal of Rosicrucian symbolism and philosophy. The 18th degree of the Scottish Rite, one of the most important higher degrees, is called the Knight of the Rose Croix, and its rituals are steeped in Rosicrucian allegory. Esoteric thinkers, alchemists, and mystics throughout the 17th and 18th centuries either proudly called themselves Rosicrucians or were heavily influenced by their philosophy. The movement was less about a single, continuous organization with a clear lineage, and more about a shared intellectual and spiritual current, a Rosicrucian enlightenment, that championed a worldview in which the universe was a single, living organism, a macrocosm, and the human being was a microcosm, a universe in miniature. By understanding the self, one could understand the cosmos. And by purifying the self through knowledge and virtue, one could play a part in the healing and redemption of the world. This idea of an invisible college, a secret brotherhood of enlightened minds working behind the scenes for the betterment of humanity, has been profoundly influential. It has inspired countless artists, writers, and philosophers, and it laid the intellectual and spiritual groundwork for the next great wave of occult revival, which would take shape not in the world of anonymous pamphlets and allegorical weddings, but in the gaslit Victorian drawing rooms of London, with a society that sought to turn allegory into active ritual magic, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. As we leave the mystery of Christian Rosenkreuz and his invisible brotherhood, we carry with us the scent of the rose and the shadow of the cross, a reminder that sometimes the most powerful and enduring movements begin not with an army or a declaration, but with an idea, a story, a legend whispered into the world, waiting for the right minds to hear it and devote their lives to making it real. The 19th century was drawing to a close. London, the sprawling, gaslit heart of the British Empire, was a city of stark and fascinating contradictions. Unprecedented industrial progress and scientific rationalism existed alongside grinding poverty and a deep, almost desperate spiritual hunger. Beneath the rigid, respectable surface of Victorian society, a powerful fascination with the unseen world was stirring. Spiritualism, with its seances, spirit trumpets, and table rappings, had become a popular, if controversial, craze in drawing rooms across the city. Theosophy, as we shall later explore, was introducing the vast, mystical philosophies of the East to an eager Western audience. And in this fertile ground of spiritual searching and intellectual curiosity, a new and uniquely sophisticated secret society was born. It was not a society of jesters or allegorists. It was deadly serious. It sought to create a new kind of magician, a scholar-practitioner, who could wield the ancient, complex powers of ceremonial magic with the intellectual rigor and discipline of a Victorian academic. This was the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. For a brief, incandescent period, from its founding in 1888 until its dramatic internal collapse in the early 1900s, the Golden Dawn was arguably the single most influential occult organization in the Western world. Its members were not just curious dabblers. They were poets, artists, scholars, doctors, and revolutionaries. And the comprehensive system of magic they created, a grand synthesis of ancient traditions, would become the foundational grimoire, the essential source code, for nearly all of modern Western esotericism, from Wicca to the controversial works of Aleister Crowley. The origin story of the Golden Dawn is itself a piece of high occult drama, steeped in mystery and convenient discovery. It begins, as many such stories do, with a mysterious, ancient text. This was the cipher manuscript, a collection of some 60 pages filled with esoteric diagrams and text written in a simple substitution cipher attributed to the 15th century abbot and polymath, Johannes Trithemius. According to the official account, these coded papers were acquired in 1887 by Dr. William Wynne Westcott, a London coroner, a high-ranking Freemason, and a member of the Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia, the Rosicrucian Society in England. Westcott claimed to have obtained the manuscript from a fellow Mason, the Reverend A.F.A. Woodford. Upon painstakingly decoding the manuscript, Westcott found the skeletal outline of a series of magical initiation rituals, fragmented but tantalizing. Most importantly, tucked within the pages was a slip of paper containing a name and address in Germany. The name was Fräulein Anna Sprengel, and she was, according to the note, a high adept of a secret German Rosicrucian order known as Die Goldene Dämmerung, the Golden Dawn. Westcott, intrigued, wrote to her, and, according to his account, she responded, not only confirming the authenticity of the rituals but granting Westcott and his two associates a charter to establish a new English branch of this ancient German order. His two associates were Dr. William Robert Woodman, a physician and fellow high-ranking Mason, and Samuel Liddell MacGregor Mathers, a flamboyant, eccentric, and brilliant esoteric scholar. And so, in 1888, the Isis Urania Temple of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was officially founded in London, with Westcott, Woodman, and Mathers as its three founding chiefs. Was the story of Anna Sprengel and the secret German order true? Almost certainly not. Like the Rosicrucian manifestos 2 centuries before it, the cipher manuscript and the subsequent correspondence were very likely a pious fraud, a foundational myth created by Westcott and Mathers to grant their new order an ancient, unimpeachable lineage and an air of profound authority. The real genius behind the Golden Dawn was not some mysterious German adept, but the three founders themselves, and most especially the visionary and mercurial MacGregor Mathers. Mathers was a polymath and a master of ritual. A skilled fencer, a military enthusiast who insisted on being called by his Scottish clan name MacGregor, and a tireless translator of esoteric texts. He had already translated key works of Jewish mysticism like the Kabbalah Unveiled, and famous medieval grimoires like the Key of Solomon the King. It was Mathers who took the bare-bones ritual outlines from the cipher manuscript and, with his colleagues, fleshed them out into a comprehensive, elegant, and powerful system of magical training. The Golden Dawn was not to be a place for passive belief. It was to be a university of magic. Its curriculum was a grand, ambitious synthesis of the entire Western esoteric tradition. It drew from the Neoplatonic and Gnostic philosophies of late antiquity, the ancient Egyptian pantheon, the mystical Christian tradition of the Rosicrucians, the complex tree of life from the Hebrew Kabbalah, the symbolic sciences of alchemy, tarot, and astrology, and the strange, powerful system of angelic communication known as Enochian magic, which was allegedly received by the Elizabethan court magician Dr. John Dee in the 16th century. This was not a jumble of superstitions. It was a structured, hierarchical, and intellectually demanding system of learning. The order was divided into 3 parts, mirroring the Kabbalistic tree of life. The first was the outer order, which was itself called the Golden Dawn. It consisted of 5 initiation grades, corresponding to the 5 elements: Neophyte, a probationary grade; Zealoter, earth; Theoricus, air; Practicus, water; and Philosophus, fire. In the outer order, the neophyte learned the foundational theory. They studied the basics of Kabbalah, astrology, and divination with tools like tarot and geomancy. They memorized the Hebrew alphabet and its esoteric correspondences. They practiced basic meditation and visualization techniques. The initiation rituals for each grade were elaborate, multisensory theatrical performances, designed to imprint symbolic knowledge directly onto the initiate's psyche. They took place in a meticulously decorated temple, designed to be a microcosm of the universe, with officers representing different spiritual and elemental forces. If an initiate proved their dedication and intellectual capacity, they could be invited to pass an examination and enter the second order, the Rosy Ruby et Ori Crucis, the Red Rose and the Golden Cross, often referred to as the RRETAC. This was the inner circle, the true magical engine of the order. Here, the theory learned in the outer order was finally put into practice. Adepts learned practical ceremonial magic, how to consecrate talismans, how to perform scrying, a form of divination using a crystal or mirror, how to master astral travel, how to invoke angels and archangels, and how to create and charge their own magical tools. It was here that the real work of magic, the conscious transformation of the self and reality through will, was taught. Beyond the second order was the mythical third order, said to be composed of the secret chiefs, disembodied, transcendent spiritual masters who guided the order from the astral planes. Whether these chiefs were real spiritual beings, archetypes of the human psyche, or another clever invention by Mathers, they represented the ultimate source of the order's authority and esoteric knowledge. Mathers would later claim to be in soul direct communication with them. The membership of the Golden Dawn was a who's who of the literary and artistic avant-garde of late Victorian Britain. It was, crucially, one of the first esoteric societies of its time to admit women as equal members from its inception. In a society that still largely confined women to the domestic sphere, the order offered them a space for profound intellectual and spiritual development, and many of its most accomplished magicians were women. Members included the poet W.B. Yeats, who would later win the Nobel Prize for Literature and whose poetry is deeply infused with Golden Dawn symbolism. The actress Florence Farr, a close friend of George Bernard Shaw and a powerful ritualist in her own right. Annie Horniman, the wealthy tea heiress who used her fortune to patronize the arts and who single-handedly financed the Abbey Theatre in Dublin. The author of supernatural fiction, Arthur Machen. And the artist Pamela Colman Smith, who, under the guidance of fellow member A.E. Waite, would later design the iconic and globally recognized Rider-Waite tarot deck. And then, in November of 1898, a new initiate joined the order. A brilliant, rebellious, and deeply controversial young man from a wealthy family, who had already tired of Cambridge University and was dedicating his life to poetry and mountaineering. His name was Aleister Crowley. His immense talent, his insatiable ambition, and his open defiance of the order's leadership, particularly his clashes with Yeats and Mathers, would be a key catalyst in the order's eventual spectacular implosion. Like so many secret societies before it, the Golden Dawn was ultimately undone by human ego and internal power struggles. MacGregor Mathers, who had moved to Paris, became increasingly autocratic and paranoid. He claimed to be the sole representative of the secret chiefs on Earth and demanded absolute obedience from the London adepts. Back in London, the members, led by a faction that included W.B. Yeats and Florence Farr, grew resentful of his long-distance control and his increasingly erratic behavior. A rebellion was brewing. The final straw came in 1900. Aleister Crowley, who had rapidly advanced through the grades and was now a loyal follower of Mathers, was denied initiation into the Second Order by the London Council, who distrusted his character. Furious, Crowley traveled to Paris, where Mathers initiated him personally. Mathers then sent Crowley back to London as his official envoy, with instructions to seize control of the London Temple's property and ritual equipment. The result was a farcical and very public magical war. Crowley, dressed in a black mask and full Highland regalia, attempted to take over the temple rooms, while Yates and other members changed the locks and obtained a court injunction against him. There were accusations of magical attacks, public letters denouncing each other, and a level of theatrical drama that would have made a Victorian novelist blush. By 1903, the original Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn had shattered. It splintered into several smaller, competing offshoots, such as the Stella Matutina, led by A.E. Waite, and the Alpha Et Omega, led by Mathers. Though the original, unified order lasted only about 15 years, its influence is almost impossible to overstate. The Golden Dawn's curriculum, its ritual structures, its grade system, and its grand synthesis of Western esotericism became the DNA of 20th century occultism. It took the scattered, often incomprehensible and jealously guarded texts of the past, the grimoires of medieval mages, the alchemical treatises, the complex Kabbalistic diagrams, and organized them into a coherent, step-by-step system of personal development and spiritual attainment. It created a practical, accessible path for the modern magician. As we leave the gaslit temples of Victorian London, we carry with us the scent of incense and the echo of incantations. The Golden Dawn demonstrated that the ancient desire for magic, for a direct and personal experience of the divine and the unseen, never truly dies. It simply changes its form, adapting to the language and the anxieties of its time. And its own grand ambition to synthesize all the world's wisdom into a single, unified system would be taken up, on an even grander, more cosmic scale, by our final subject for tonight. A society that sought not just to practice magic, but to reveal the secret doctrine of the cosmos itself, Theosophy. As the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn was busy resurrecting the ceremonial magic of the West in the drawing rooms of London, another, even more ambitious spiritual movement was looking east. It sought to synthesize not just the Western esoteric traditions, but the vast, ancient and often misunderstood philosophies of India, Tibet, and Egypt into a single universal wisdom. It spoke not of invoking angels and demons, but of karma, reincarnation, and the guidance of ascended masters. This was Theosophy, and at its heart was one of the most enigmatic, charismatic, and profoundly controversial figures of the 19th century, Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. If the Golden Dawn was a secret university for magicians, Theosophy was a spiritual world tour for the soul. It promised its followers access to a secret doctrine, an ancient, primordial truth that, it claimed, undergirded all the world's great religions and philosophies. It asserted that this pristine wisdom had been preserved for millennia by a secret brotherhood of spiritual masters, or Mahatmas, living in the remote, inaccessible Himalayas, and that Madame Blavatsky, their chosen vessel, had come to deliver it to a spiritually starved Western world. Helena Blavatsky, or HPB as she was widely known, was a force of nature. Born in 1831 to a Russian-German aristocratic family in what is now Ukraine, she was a rebellious, clairvoyant child who claimed to see spirits and have powerful visions from a young age. Her life story, as told by herself and her followers, is a whirlwind of adventure and mystery. After a brief, unconsummated marriage at the age of 17, she embarked on a decades-long journey across the globe. She claimed to have traveled to Egypt, to have fought alongside Garibaldi in Italy, and, most importantly, to have spent years in Tibet, studying with the very masters whose teachings she would later reveal. She was a larger-than-life character. A chain-smoking, card-playing, fiercely intelligent woman with piercing blue eyes, who could hold a room captive with her torrent of stories, her encyclopedic knowledge of world mythology, and her uncanny, sometimes unsettling, psychic abilities. In 1873, she arrived in New York City. It was here, in the bustling, materialistic heart of Gilded Age America, that the seeds of her movement were sown. She met Colonel Henry Steele Olcott, a respected lawyer, agricultural expert, and Civil War veteran who had become fascinated with the spiritualist phenomena sweeping the nation. He was captivated by Blavatsky's charisma and apparent powers. Together with William Quan Judge, a young Irish-American attorney, they formed a new organization. On September 8, 1875, in Blavatsky's New York apartment, the Theosophical Society was officially founded. Its stated goals were threefold, and they were radical for their time. First, to form a nucleus of the universal brotherhood of humanity, without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste, or color. Second, to encourage the study of comparative religion, philosophy, and science. And third, to investigate the unexplained laws of nature and the powers latent in man. These were lofty, inclusive, and deeply intellectual goals, and they attracted a wide range of thinkers, artists, and spiritual seekers who felt alienated by both the rigid dogmas of Orthodox religion and the cold, seemingly soulless materialism of modern science. Theosophy offered a third way, a spiritual science, a modern Gnosticism that promised to reconcile the ancient with the modern, the East with the West. The Society's foundational texts were two massive, sprawling, and often impenetrable books written by Blavatsky herself. The first was Isis Unveiled, published in 1877, a sweeping critique of both institutional religion and contemporary science, which she accused of being equally blind to spiritual realities. But her magnum opus was The Secret Doctrine, published in 1888. This two-volume behemoth laid out a complex and breathtaking cosmology. Blavatsky claimed it was a commentary on a secret, ancient manuscript called the Stanzas of Zion, which she said she had been shown by the masters in a hidden Himalayan monastery, and which she had transcribed and translated telepathically. The Secret Doctrine tells a story of cosmic evolution spanning billions of years. It describes the birth and death of universes, which it calls Manvantaras and Pralayas. It details the evolution of humanity through a series of 7 root races, beginning with ethereal, formless beings and progressing through the giant, continent-sinking civilizations of Lemuria and Atlantis, leading to our current 5th root race, the Aryan. It weaves together threads from Hinduism, with its concepts of karma and reincarnation, Tibetan Buddhism, Gnosticism, Hermeticism, and even distorted interpretations of modern science into a single, grand, and often bewildering narrative. At the very heart of this vast cosmic drama were the masters of the ancient wisdom, also known as the Mahatmas. These were not gods, but highly evolved human beings who had perfected themselves over countless incarnations and now guided the spiritual evolution of humanity from behind the scenes. Blavatsky named 2 of her primary contacts, Master Morya and Master Kuthumi. She claimed to be in constant psychic and written communication with them. One of the most phenomenal and controversial aspects of early Theosophy was the production of the Mahatma letters. These were letters, allegedly from the masters themselves, which would precipitate materialize out of thin air onto Blavatsky's desk or appear mysteriously inside sealed envelopes, often in response to a question posed by a member just moments before. These letters, filled with philosophical teachings and personal guidance, became a source of both profound inspiration for her followers and intense suspicion for her critics. In 1879, Blavatsky and Colonel Olcott moved the international headquarters of the Theosophical Society to India, eventually settling in Udyar, near Madras, now Chennai. Here, the society truly flourished. It played a crucial and often overlooked role in the Indian and Sri Lankan independence movements. At a time when British colonialism was systematically devaluing local traditions, Olcott and Blavatsky championed a revival of Hindu and Buddhist philosophy, encouraging Indians and Sri Lankans to take pride in their own ancient wisdom. The society founded schools, published journals, and provided a platform for a new generation of nationalist leaders. Theosophy's cultural influence in the West was equally profound. It was largely responsible for introducing key Eastern concepts like karma, reincarnation, yoga, and the idea of the chakras to the Western world on a mass scale. Its ideas influenced a staggering number of artists, writers, and thinkers. The poet W.B. Yeats was an early and active member. The painter Vasily Kandinsky, one of the pioneers of abstract art, credited Theosophy's spiritual view of the cosmos with inspiring his break from representational painting. Even L. Frank Baum, the author of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, was a committed theosophist, and many scholars now read his famous story as a theosophical allegory, with the yellow brick road representing the golden path to enlightenment. But the society was also constantly plagued by scandal and controversy. In 1884, 2 former employees at the Udyar headquarters, the Kulams, sold a series of letters to a Christian missionary magazine, alleging they were from Blavatsky and proved that she had faked the Mahatma phenomena using trick panels, sliding doors, and accomplices. The scandal was immense. In response, the prestigious Society for Psychical Research in London sent a young investigator named Richard Hodgson to investigate. In 1885, the Society published the Hodgson Report, which delivered a damning verdict. It concluded that Blavatsky was nothing more than one of the most accomplished, ingenious, and interesting impostors in history. The report was a devastating blow to Blavatsky's health and reputation, and it has been used by critics to dismiss her work ever since. It is important to note that a century later, in 1986, the same Society for Psychical Research issued a press release that effectively retracted the report's harsh conclusions, calling Hodgson's investigation flawed, biased, and far from objective. After Madame Blavatsky's death in 1891, the Theosophical Society faced a crisis of succession. The leadership mantle was taken up by her chosen successors, Annie Besant and William Quan Judge. Besant, a brilliant British social reformer, feminist, and powerful orator, would lead the society for decades. However, she soon became embroiled in a new and even more dramatic controversy. She and another prominent theosophist, the clairvoyant Charles Leadbeater, claimed to have discovered the vehicle for the new world teacher, a messianic, Christ-like figure who, they believed, would soon appear to guide humanity into its next spiritual age. They identified this figure in the person of a young, sensitive Indian boy named Jiddu Krishnamurti. They adopted him, groomed him, educated him, and founded a new global organization, the Order of the Star in the East, specifically to prepare the world for his coming ministry. For years, Krishnamurti played the part, giving speeches and being hailed by thousands of Theosophists as the next Messiah. But then, in 1929, at a massive gathering of the Order in the Netherlands, Krishnamurti did the unthinkable. He took to the stage and, in a stunning public address, he dissolved the Order. He renounced his role as the world teacher, declaring that truth is a pathless land, and you cannot approach it by any path whatsoever, by any religion, by any sect. He spent the rest of his long life as a deeply respected, independent spiritual teacher, urging people to find truth within themselves, not through gurus, organizations, or belief systems. It was a profound and beautiful betrayal of the very system that had elevated him. The Theosophical Society fractured after these events, but it did not disappear. It survives to this day with branches all over the world, continuing its work of comparative study. Its influence, however, is most deeply felt in the countless movements it spawned. The entire New Age movement of the 20th century, with its focus on channeling, crystals, past lives, and ascended masters, is a direct cultural descendant of Theosophy's grand, cosmic vision. Theosophy, like Rosicrucianism and the Golden Dawn before it, offered a spiritual alternative for a world caught between a fading, dogmatic religious faith and a seemingly soulless scientific materialism. It proposed a universe that was not just dead matter, but living consciousness. A cosmos filled with purpose, guided by unseen wisdom, and evolving, slowly, painfully, towards a divine destiny. It was ambitious, it was strange, it was often theatrical and filled with human flaws. But it asked its followers to believe in a bigger story, to see themselves as part of a great cosmic drama, and to find the ancient, secret doctrine not in a hidden manuscript from a Himalayan monastery, but within the quiet, boundless, and luminous library of their own soul. Of course, here is the detailed and event-rich script for the conclusion of the episode, The Rosicrucians, Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and Theosophy Exploring Occult Mysteries. This script is crafted to be a thoughtful and atmospheric summary, tying together the threads of the three movements while maintaining the signature calm and narrative style of Driftwood Histories. And so our exploration of these occult mysteries comes to an end, at least for tonight. We have drifted through centuries of secrets, from the allegorical gardens of the Rosicrucians, to the gaslit ceremonial temples of the Golden Dawn, and finally to the cosmic, star-charted monasteries of Theosophy. We have met the ghost of Christian Rosenkreutz, witnessed the magical wars of W.B. Yeats and MacGregor Mathers, and listened to the strange, profound pronouncements of Madame Blavatsky. Though they emerged in different eras and with different methods, these three movements were all born from the same deep human impulse, the search for a hidden truth. A thread of wisdom they believed could connect humanity not only to the divine, but back to itself. They are part of a long, unbroken lineage, an underground river of esoteric thought that has flowed quietly beneath the surface of Western civilization for millennia. First, we encountered the Rosicrucians, an invisible college that may never have existed in fact, but became profoundly real in spirit. Their anonymous manifestos, appearing in a war-torn Germany, were a call for a universal reformation. They proposed a world where faith and science were not adversaries, but partners, where the alchemical work was not about turning lead into gold, but about transmuting the human soul into a state of enlightened perfection. They gave the esoteric world a powerful and enduring myth, that of a secret, benevolent brotherhood, working silently through the ages for the betterment of all. Then we stepped into the late Victorian world of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Here, the allegories of the Rosicrucians were transformed into a practical, rigorous system of ceremonial magic. The Golden Dawn was a university of the unseen. It synthesized the fragmented traditions of the West Kabbalah, Hermeticism, Tarot, alchemy into a coherent curriculum for the modern magician. It taught that the symbols of the past were not mere curiosities, but active tools for shaping consciousness and reality. Though its original form was shattered by ego and ambition, its teachings became the foundational grimoire for nearly all of modern Western occultism. And finally, we traveled with the Theosophical Society to the vast spiritual landscapes of the East. Led by the enigmatic Madame Blavatsky, Theosophy attempted the most ambitious synthesis of all. It sought to reveal a secret doctrine, a primordial wisdom that it claimed was the common root of all the world's religions. It introduced the West to the profound concepts of karma and reincarnation on a mass scale, and proposed a vast, evolutionary cosmology guided by unseen masters. It was a movement that was at once global, controversial, and profoundly influential, shaping the spiritual counterculture for a century to come. So, what do these three societies, separated by centuries and styles, tell us? They tell us that for every established orthodox religion, there has always been a mystical, esoteric countercurrent. A path for those who seek not just to believe but to know, to experience the divine directly, through personal revelation, ritual, and the study of hidden knowledge. They were often flawed, led by imperfect, charismatic, and sometimes duplicitous people. They were wrapped in layers of myth, secrecy, and theatricality. And yet, they all responded to a genuine spiritual need. In eras dominated by either rigid religious dogma or the rise of a seemingly cold and godless scientific materialism, they offered a third way, a path that honored both the spirit and the intellect, the heart and the mind. They remind us that the human spirit has always, and will always, search for meaning in the shadows, for a pattern in the chaos, for a light in the darkness. Whether that light is found in the blooming of a rose upon a cross, the invocation of an archangel in a candlelit temple, or the study of a secret cosmic doctrine, the search itself is a testament to our enduring hope. A hope that this world is more than what it seems, and that we, too, are more than what we seem. Thank you for joining me on this esoteric voyage with Driftwood Histories. If these stories have sparked your imagination and calmed your mind, I invite you to subscribe and join our community of fellow seekers. There are many more hidden currents of time, many more forgotten philosophies, for us to explore together. Until then, sleep well. May your own inner temple be a place of peace. May your questions lead you to wonder, and may your dreams be filled with a little bit of magic. Good night.